know how strapped I am right now with the evacuation, the Home Guard, and now fifth columnist. If you could leave the investigation, I would be in your debt.
I will help in any way I can, my friend.
Thank you. You just missed Dr. Neasden, the coroner. My men have done a cursory search of the cove. We'll be back shortly to collect the remains and with equipment to do a better job.
Who called you?
George Strum, bathing beach attendant, showed up on my doorstep. Miss Brewster sent him. As luck would have it, Neasden was with me, so we came right over.
What could Dr. Neasden tell you about the time of death?
He put the time of the murder at somewhere between 11:15 and 12:20, just before Redfern and Miss Brewster showed up.
The cause of death was strangulation?
Oh yes, no doubt about that. The handprints are very clear on the neck. Neasden may be able to tell us more after the autopsy, but it's pretty clear a very strong pair of hands did that to her. That's all I have for now. Moreau, I hate to drop this thing in your lap like this.
Do not concern yourself, my friend.
Look around all you like. Make sure everyone knows you speak with my authority. I'll do a background check on everyone on the island. I should have a report for you at the police station later this afternoon.
Thank you, Colonel. You aren't going to look at her face, are you? The investigator of murder cannot be squeamish, Hastings?
Still, if you assure me of the facts, there isn't any real need, is there?
As you wish. I state categorically that Mrs. Marshall was strangled to death by a very powerful pair of hands. Elena's coffee flask.
Hello, something was dumped here. What does it smell like, Poirot?
Coffee. This is certainly significant.
What? Oh, Poirot.
May I put to you some questions, Monsieur Redfern? How did you and Mademoiselle Brewster come to be rowing together?
I asked Miss Brewster if I could join her.
Why did you do that? Monsieur Redfern, there is no longer the luxury of playing the little games. Now is the time for truth.
Elena and I were accustomed to swimming together each morning. When I didn't see her on the beach, I went looking for her. She wasn't up at the hotel. I saw Miss Brewster getting the rowboat ready. That's when I got the idea that if we rowed around the island, I might find her, Elena. I offered to row first. We set off.
What time did you arrive here?
Sometime before 12. I don't know exactly.
Tell me what you thought when you saw Mrs. Marshall.
Well, I was put out, if you must know. I couldn't understand why she hadn't met me. I couldn't understand it at all. I rowed to the beach. I wanted to find out what she was doing.
What happened after the boat beached?
I called out to her, but she didn't answer. She just lay there. I went over to her. There was something strange. She was so still. I knelt beside her, touched her hand, then her arm. She didn't react at all. Then I lifted her hand. My God, her face, Poirot. It was dark, mottled. Those marks. Handprints on her neck.
Steady.
I'm sorry. She was so beautiful. How could anyone spoil that?
Who went for help?
Miss Brewster. I had this idea. I wanted to protect Elena. It's stupid, I know. She was beyond anyone's protection. I sat near her, then couldn't take that anymore, and came over here and waited until the police arrived.
Is there anything you saw or thought that might help us?
I'm sorry. Let me think.
Take your time.
There was one thing. I heard a noise while I was still over near Elena.
What was it?
A clatter on the rocks near the ladder. Something falling. Not a rock, though. Something light.
I may have more questions for you later.
one piece of green fabric. The same colour as Arlena Marshall's hat. That mud looks like it was placed there deliberately. And there's something shiny underneath. I say, a six-sided metal receptacle hidden by the mud. The mud must have been applied fairly recently, and the metal looks shiny, almost new. And that shape, it reminds me of something. It's like the receptacle for a winch handle you find on the masts of some sailboats to winch the sail up and down. I'll just snip a piece of the fabric from the hat.
I would like to put to you the questions, if I may.
Of course.
How did you and Monsieur Redfern come to be rowing together?
After you saw me at Rocky Bar, I changed and was about to set out on my morning row when Mr. Redfern asked if he could join me.
What time did you arrive here?
We arrived on the beach at 11:45. We must have come in sight of the cove 5 minutes before that.
Tell me what you thought when you saw Mrs. Marshall.
Nothing at first. I assumed she was sunning herself.
And then?
Well, the first thing I noticed was she was lying as if she was sunbathing, but she was in the shade of the cliffs. Then, when Mr. Redfern called out and she didn't answer, that felt odd too. Once we were out of the boat, I could tell there was something unnatural in the way she was lying. Her arms. Right round the island, so I checked my watch. It was not quite 11:30.
Did Monsieur Redfern often accompany you?
No, this was the first time. If you ask me, he was looking for Mrs. Marshall. He volunteered to take the oars first.
What happened after the boat beached?
Mr. Redfern and I approached Mrs. Marshall. I could see he thought the situation wasn't right as well. He knelt beside her, touched her hand, then her arm, then he started to lift her hat. He saw her face and cried out.
Who went for help?
I did. We both knew someone had to. I'm not the kind of woman who would ever admit to feeling fear, but I was secretly thankful when Mr. Redfern offered to stay with the body.
I understand perfectly, mademoiselle. You must have reproached yourself. Is there anything you saw or thought that might help us?
No, I don't believe so. Yes, there is something. She was strangled, just like Millie and the other woman, Alice Corrigan. 3 women strangled in South Devon within a few months of one another. Can that be just coincidence?
Anything is possible, mademoiselle. But I will agree the coincidence in this case seems highly unlikely. I may have more questions for you later.
Of course.
Can you row me back to the bathing beach?
Of course. Would you like to leave now?
Yes, thank you.